Gyokko is still pissed off because even after damaging one of his eyes, Mr. Hakaneska is still ignoring him, and I do not blame him. I wouldn't want to look at you either. I mean, have you seen yourself? You have 2 mouths, no ears, and 4 tiny hands sprouting from your head. Matter of fact, you're so ugly you make Quasimodo look like Prince Charming, and that's not saying much. But regardless, you're still ugly.
Hey man, it's your boy Alex, and welcome back to another bang.
Today, we are talking about Demon Slayer, and more specifically, the rest of the Swordsmith Village arc, where the Demon Slayers continue their fight with Gyokko and hantengu. So if you have not yet seen episodes 52 through 55 of Demon Slayer, spoiler warnings ahead. And without further ado, it's time to get unhinged. So we start off with Tokito bursting out of the water prison that Gyokko put him in, and after removing his needles, he looks up to see Kotetsu passed out on the ground. But it gets worse because he gets attacked by these ugly fish demons. But right before he gets hit, we get a flashback to Tokito's backstory, and he got hit with the double whammy off the rip. On the same day, his mother died from a sickness and his father fell to his death trying to get back home. And mind you, he was only 10 years old when it happened, but he didn't have to endure it alone because right next to him was his older twin brother Yuichiro, and the two of them were like yin and yang. On one hand, Muichiro was more kind and sympathetic towards others, but Yuichiro was more selfish and harsh, and much more colder to his brother. But they continued on living together as the seasons began to change, and one day, they were visited by Lady Amane, who told them about their family's history, and this motivated Muichiro to become a swordsman, so that he can defeat demons and help people. But the moment Yuichiro heard this, he began to crash out. And after roasting Muichiro for a good 2 minutes, Yuichiro tells his brother to shut up and make dinner. Now me personally, I'm not taking that. Like, we might be twins, but after I'm done whooping the brakes off of you, we're gonna be looking like a failed Shadow Clone Jutsu. But anyways, we fast forward to a hot summer night, and Muichiro cannot fall asleep, so he gets up and makes himself some water. And when he turns to his brother, he's awake too. But as these two are staring at each other, standing in their doorway is a demon, and he heads right towards Muichiro. And when his brother tries to step in and protect him, the demon cuts off his arm. Like, bro, chill. He's only 11. Like, you mean to tell me you couldn't go outside and eat a deer or something? This monster's really out here targeting children like a damn Diddy demon. And as Muichiro drags his brother to the corner, the demon follows them. And after calling him worthless, the last thing Muichiro saw was red. And in that moment, he blacked out and went into a rage. And when he came to, he was covered in blood, and standing in front of the demon, he just packed up. And after the sun burns the demon away, Muichiro heads back home to check on his brother. And when he finally made it back, his brother was barely hanging on to life, but he was still able to speak. But what he was saying was something Muichiro would never expect, as he begins to praise his brother and beg someone to come and save him. And as Muichiro grabs his brother's hand, we cut back to present day as this Demon Slayer mark activates. And as the demon fish continue to attack, he says, misbreathing, fourth form, shifting flow slash, as he kills the demons and saves Kotetsu. And when we cut back to the shack, Gyokko is still pissed off because even after damaging one of his eyes, Mr. Hakaneska is still ignoring him, and I do not blame him. I wouldn't want to look at you either. I mean, have you seen yourself? You have 2 mouths, no ears, and 4 tiny hands sprouting from your head. Matter of fact, you're so ugly you make Quasimodo look like Prince Charming, and that's not saying much. But regardless, you're still ugly. And while he's distracted, he almost gets taken out by Muichiro, but he narrowly dodges it and stands there confused as hell. And as Tokito dashes back in, this monster uses an octopus domain expansion and bursts through the entire shaft. And somehow, after all that, Mr. Hakaneska snatches his block and continues to sharpen the sword. My brother, if you don't get up and skedaddle. And on top of that, Gyokko has Tokito and Mr. Kanamori captured, but not for long, because as Tokito breaks free, he dashes in and activates misbreathing, fifth form, sea of clouds and haze, as he cuts through the tentacles and narrowly misses Gyokko. At least, that's what Gyokko thought, because as he sits there, his neck suddenly cuts open, but moments later, he teleports behind Tokito, but he dodges all of his attacks, and as he remembers his brother, Muichiro dashes in and cuts through Gyokko. As Gyokko regenerates his limbs, they both start to roast each other. But after Tokito makes fun of his base, Gyokko begins to tweak out. And seconds later, he shoots out over 10,000 fish. But Tokito says, misbreathing, sixth form, lunar dispersing mist, as he slashes them all at the same time. But Gyokko has another trick up his sleeve, because this fish can unleash a poison that can be absorbed through the skin. But Tokito is not bothered, as he says, misbreathing, third form, scattering mist splash, as he blasts them all away with one swing. And as he dashes at Gyokko, he sheds his skin at the last second, and now he finally reveals his true form. But Tokito is unamused, so this pisses Gyokko off. And as Tokito stands there, Gyokko rushes in to attack. And as Tokito moves out the way, Gyokko continues to glaze himself. But Tokito's over here completely locked in, and the moment he drops down, the two begin to go at it. But then Gyokko gets behind him and dashes in. But the moment he does, Tokito turns his head and says, "Misbreathing, 7th form, obscuring clouds," as he disappears in front of Gyokko. And he's got this demon completely lost, over her hitting mist illusions, confused as hell. And before he knew it, he was completely surrounded by mist. And when he turns around, Tokito steps in and cuts off his head. And just to make sure he's dead, he begins to play Fruit Ninja with his cranium. And as he begins to shrivel away, Tokito has now defeated Upper Moon 5. And when Mr. Kanamori checks on him, this man begins to foam at the mouth and pass out. And when Kotetsu walks over, he reveals that Tanjiro's guard saved him from being stabbed in the stomach. And as Tokito lays there, he begins to think about his family. And as they stay and comfort him, we cut to Tanjiro and the gang continuing their fight with hantengu. And as he attempts to attack, he gets hit with a point-blank sound wave. And as Zohakuten continues to bang his drums, the dragons continue to attack, as the demon slayers continue to struggle against them. And with nowhere else to go, Tanjiro gets snatched up and swallowed whole. And as the dragon begins to scream out, both Nezuko and Genya are helpless. And as Tanjiro is being crushed inside the dragon's throat, out of nowhere, Mitsuri appears, cuts the dragon, and frees Tanjiro. And as Zohakuten looks down in annoyance, Mitsuri dashes in and takes him head on. As Mitsuri stands before Zohakuten, she tells him she's going to free Nezuko and Genya. And he says, and I quote, "Silence, shameless tramp." And she was like, "What did you just say?" But he bangs his drum, which makes his dragons attack. But she says, "Love breathing, 3rd form, cat love shower," as she deflects the dragon's attack. And as he bangs his drum again, the dragon starts blasting at her. But she dodges them and says, "Love breathing, 2nd form, love pegs," as she slices the dragon's neck. And when another head attacks, she follows up with 6th form, cat leg wings of love, as she deflects its attack as well. But Zohakuten is not finished, because when he activates his blood demon art, more heads begin to form. But Mitsuri goes airborne and says, "Love breathing, 5th form, swaying love, wild claw," as she completely obliterates every single head. And as she continues to dash in, she wraps her sword around her target. But as she gets into point blank range, she gets smacked with compressed sound waves straight to the face. And with her passed out on the ground, Zohakuten walks her down and attempts to take off her head. But right before he can, she gets saved by everyone? And as they run off with her, Zohakuten hits him with a giant lightning strike. But when the dust settles, she completely slashed through the whole thing. But the fight's not over. And as the dragons rush in, she begins to cut through them. And as the rest of them watch in awe, she turns and tells them to attack the main body. And as they run off, Tanjiro begins to track it down. And when he finally locates it, they change directions and head towards it. And they have to hurry, because Mitsuri can only hold off the dragon for so long. But as she continues fighting, Zohakuten notices her demon slayer mark. And he begins to get frustrated, because she's too fast to hit. And as she stands before him, Tanjiro sees the tree that hantengu's hiding in. And as it tries to escape, they all climb on top of it. And they are hanging on for dear life. And with no other options, Genya bites through it and yanks off the tip. And with it now on the ground, Nezuko uses her blood demon art and lights it on fire. And now it's Tanjiro's turn, as he activates Hinokami Kagura, Flame Dance. But it wasn't enough, because all he did was open it up. So as Nezuko and Genya keep it open, he attempts to slash again, but it suddenly disappeared. And when he finds it, it begins to run off. And as they chase after it, Genya grabs a tree, rips it out the ground, and launches it at hantengu. But he narrowly avoids it. But hawking him down is Nezuko, who leaps in the air and slashes down. As Nezuko slashes down, she narrowly misses, and now they're all back on the chase. And Tanjiro notices that daybreak is near, which means that their time to defeat the demons before they escape is running low. But with Tanjiro's leg injury that he sustained earlier, he begins to slow down. But he suddenly remembers what Zenitsu told him about thunder breathing, and as he plants his foot, he zooms past everyone and slices into hantengu. But out of nowhere, this monster turns around, enlarges, and grabs Tanjiro's face. And as Tanjiro's about to pass out, Genya runs up and tries to break him free. But hantengu hits both of them with sound waves. When suddenly, Nezuko jumps from an opening and uses her blood demon art to set him on fire. And with that distraction, Genya finally frees Tanjiro. But the job is not finished, because as hantengu continues to burn, Tanjiro begins to slice through his neck. But to avoid decapitation, hantengu walks backwards until both of them fly off the cliff. And as they crash into the ground, hantengu smells some humans and runs off to go eat them. And when he finds them, he begins to hawk them down. And when Tanjiro finally gets up, he turns to see a sword being yeeted in his direction. And when he looks to see who threw it, it was no other than the Mist Hashira himself, Muichiro Tokito. Togito. And when Tanjiro grabs the sword, he plants his foot down and says, "Total concentration," as he bursts towards his target, cuts through his neck, and yells, "Dancing Flash," as he finally decapitates Hantengu. But suddenly, he notices that the sun is rising and runs back to protect Nezuko. But she runs towards him and points out in the distance. And when he turns around, Hantengu's headless body is still chasing the civilians. And this is when Tanjiro realizes that the head of the demon he just cut off had the word resentment on its tongue, but the real main body had the word fear. But as he runs to finish it off, the sun shines over the horizon and begins to burn Nezuko. And now he has to choose between his sister or the civilians. And with no one else close enough or healthy enough to help, Tanjiro is on his own. And with this hard decision, he doesn't know what to do. So Nezuko kicks him off and sends him flying in the air, as she decided to make the decision for him. And as she begins to burn away, Tanjiro lands, and with tears in his eyes, he begins to track the true demon's scent. And as he's chasing after it, he locates his true form hiding in the demon's heart. And the moment he rushes in, he cuts him out into the open. And as he slices down, he screams out and cuts through Hantengu's neck. And with that final strike, Hantengu is finally defeated. But he falls down and cries because he couldn't save his sister. But when he's told to look up, he turns to see her shining in the daylight. And as the two reunite, the demon slayers across the battlefield rejoice, now that the battle is finally over. And when Mitsuri finally rejoins them, she pulls them all in for a group hug, as they're all happy to see each other alive and well. And now we fast forward to Nezuko and Tanjiro finally leaving Swordsmith Village. But before he leaves, they blind him and plug his nose. And with the proper safety precautions in check, they all say their farewells as Tanjiro begins to head out. But suddenly, his blindfold is removed, as he looks around to see the people of the village cheering him on and thanking him. And as they all continue to celebrate, Tanjiro smiles as he begins to head out for the next part of his journey. Alright, so that's it for today's video, but don't worry, we got some more bangers coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And once again, I appreciate everybody for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe as well. It's your boy Atlas, and I'll catch you next time.